Well, at least we can say we outscored them. Unfortunately, 2 of those goals went into our own net. Chelsea traveled to Brighton and lose 4-1. Let's get into it.
And blue is the colour. Essien! Drogba! Lampard! That could be the
championship. Greetings! Welcome back to Couch Critic with me, Dennis P, for what is your Chelsea match review, but more specifically a tactical synopsis of Chelsea's performance against Brighton. But before I do that, ladies and gentlemen, friends, foes, family, please do me a favor. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, hit the bell notification button to keep up with the latest and the newest. And if you don't already know, I do have a sponsor for the show. They go by the name of Major League Socks. And fellas, if you ever want to walk in the footsteps of greatness, you know what to do. Hit them up. The link will be in the description. Okay, so this is directly after the match. Chelsea losing 4-1 to Brighton. I am fuming. I don't know exactly how this is going to come off. I'm going to try and keep my composure and get through this thing. But so many of the things that we saw today were the warning signs from a couple weeks ago. And unfortunately, Chelsea just had not learned. Graham Potter has not learned. So I'm just going to try and keep this one short and hold my composure together, because I feel like if I get into the real nitty-gritty, the teeth of this particular match, it's just going to lead to me just infuriated. I'm going to keep this video really short. We're going to be talking about Chelsea's balance in the squad, that starting 11. We're going to be talking about that shape and why I feel like it's just not conducive to success in the Premier League. And we're going to be talking about individual errors, not because I feel that the individual errors were what cost Chelsea the game, but we're going to look at another aspect of them, just the fact that Chelsea were put under so much pressure, and pressure obviously leads to mistakes. Okay, so much of this match review is going to be focused on obviously the pre-match assessment. For the 3rd game in a row now, Graham Potter has gotten it wrong in the Premier League, where he starts out in a particular setup. It's being found out extremely easily and exploited at an alarming pace. And this is the 3rd match in a row now where Chelsea have come out and not met the requirements of the game and have been exploited in areas where I'm sure I've said before are very vulnerable for Chelsea. I'd like to start by saying we did not play with wingbacks today. This is why I was very, very nervous when I saw the lineup. I was still trying to figure out, because I didn't think that Graham Potter would be, bold enough to try a 3-2-4-1 in the Premier League. I didn't think that he had the audacity to try something like that. And, everyone in the pre-match was just like, wow, this is we're really going for it right now. And of course, we did have the reference point from the Salzburg game where, we played quite well in that shape. And, the fact that Salzburg didn't really threaten us in wide areas proved to be, part of the reason why we were so successful in that shape. But, we still had opportunities. They still had opportunities on the counter where they exploited the gaps of space to their left when you're playing a 3-2-4-1. And today was just an abysmal performance. Like, not only were we struggling to play out from the back, we couldn't get on the front foot, we could not keep possession, we could not string together 1 and 2 passes in order to, get the tempo and rhythm of the game together, control it. Brighton pressed us off the pitch, led to a lot of individual errors, a lot of mistakes coming out from the back. And again, we just did not have the personnel on the pitch to cope with the press. We did not have the personnel on the pitch to cope with the aggression that they were playing. And as much as we wanted to be on the front foot, it's very hard to be on the front foot in a game where you don't have people that can control the tempo of the game. I mean, I keep pointing back to the fact that everyone and their grandmother has a multitude of problems with Jorginho and have failed to recognize that the reason why he's so important to this setup is because of his ability to keep the ball and establish a rhythm within the squad. We had none of that today, absolutely none of that. We could not get anyone on the ball who was good on the ball. We had players hiding in positions. I'm speaking specifically of Ruben Loftus-Cheek. He had a horrible game. All of this comes down to, again, just this tactical naivety, the fact that we actually thought that we can go to Brighton away and play with such an aggressive, attacking setup. We basically played with, 2.5 defenders and 7 attackers, or 7, forward-thinking players. And I don't know in what world Graham Potter thought that would be a game plan that would be successful. He learned his lesson quite early. Chelsea got pressed and conceded 2 goals quite quickly. Obviously, most of them down to individual errors, but the individual errors to me are more down to the fact that Chelsea were put under such an immense amount of pressure and could not build from the back. If you're going to be playing a 3-2-4-1 as Chelsea did today, in my opinion, you have to have somebody that's in the middle of the pitch that can control the tempo. Jorginho, obviously. Again, in a game where, the flanks are so important, we did not give any consideration to the fact that Brighton are very capable out there. And for me, it just felt like even when we went to the shape change, we went to a back 4, it made no sense whatsoever to keep Ruben Loftus-Cheek on the pitch in favor of somebody like Azpilicueta. I know he's not the greatest in terms of what you get going forward and whatnot, but in terms of like solidity and stuff like that, the ability to actually defend, we've seen in the past under other managers, Chelsea under Tuchel, Chelsea under Conte, where you play a back 3, but you don't necessarily have to keep it a symmetrical back 3. You can play with an attacker on one of the wing-back positions, and then you play with a more defensive-minded player on the other side. And it's used. You do that because you need balance on the pitch. You need to be balanced. And today, Chelsea were just so imbalanced. We wanted to be a more forward-thinking, front-thinking team, but with no consideration for the balance in the squad. I mean, when you have Raheem Sterling and Pulisic playing as, wide midfielders, basically wingers, they were not giving any instructions to track back and make up that back 3, make it a back 5. They were basically playing as wide midfielders or wingers. And, the squad was completely imbalanced. In the middle of the pitch, we have 2 not very sound defensively aware midfielders. And when you look at Kovacic and Ruben Loftus-Cheek, and so then the onus for the defensive shape of the squad is placed on a 38, 39-year-old Thiago Silva, a young, inexperienced Trevor Chalobah. I'm not putting the inexperience tag on him because he has been playing well as of late, and a Cucurella who, to me, is not a center back. He is the furthest thing from a center back, and if today is any indication of it, he just looked like a fish out of water there. It was just really, really poor to see him in that back 3. I mean, going up against Sully March and looking like he was overmatched in that position, 1v1. Everything about this game was about balance and Chelsea's lack of awareness in those areas. Like, we just had not enough defenders, not enough guys that were thinking the game both ways. We're very much on the front foot and with no capability to get on the front foot, if you know what I mean. Like, we were not capable of keeping the ball. We were not capable of, moving the ball quickly enough to find the gaps of space in their press. All sorts of problems there, and everything that I'm saying right now is down to Graham Potter's assessment of the game, his inability to show any sort of respect to the team that he formerly was in charge of. And all of that came to bite us in the ass today in a major way. This is the 3rd game in a succession now where Graham Potter's pre-match assessment looked more like a science experiment gone wrong, rather than a football manager taking control of a game, control of a team, and putting them in a position to win the game. None of that resembled a team that was poised to win the game. It just looked like an experiment from Graham Potter gone wrong. Now, of course, most of this match was down to individual errors. I mean, Thiago Silva didn't start the game brilliantly. We had Ruben Loftus-Cheek, after a corner, own goal, and then again, obviously, Trevor Chalobah deflecting the 3rd one in past Kepa. But every one of those situations, every one of those goals comes down to the immense amount of pressure that were being put on our back line. That goal from the corner, the Ruben Loftus-Cheek goal, was after about 3 or 4 corners in succession because Chelsea could not get out. And, you give a good team enough opportunities. Granted, they hadn't scored from a set piece all season. This is the first time they've scored. You give them enough opportunities to put pressure on, a back 2.5. They're going to find a way to score. Also, you looked at the own goal by Trev Chalobah, and it's the exact same thing. Chelsea, give away the ball. We're in transition. Brighton's pushing numbers forward in transition, and we just don't have the numbers back to compensate. And unfortunately, Trev Chalobah's attempt to try and block the pass into the middle of the pitch, deflects off him and goes past Kepa. This is not an individual error for me though. This is just down to the fact that Chelsea were pressured at every point in this match, and pressure breaks pipes, you know, like we put an immense amount of pressure on our back three. We put an immense amount of pressure on our midfield, who was non-existent for most of the match. Obviously, Kovacic had some very good runs going into the final third. His press resistance was on display today, but, you know, outside of that, like his defensive shape, his ability to like recycle possession and keep it, it was abysmal today. And, you know, when you have a duo like Ruben Loftus-Cheek and Kovacic in front of a back three that left a lot to be desired because of the pressure they're put under, you know, the results are there to behold. And again, I have to put all of this down to Graham Potter. Now, naturally, we come back out in the second half and change the shape, go to a back four with Ruben Loftus-Cheek playing at right back. Or I don't understand that at all. I mean, if there's any consideration for your actually club captain to come into the game, this probably would have been it right now. Playing Ruben Loftus-Cheek at right back when you have, you know, a fit and able Azpilicueta on the bench. This makes no sense to me whatsoever. We moved him out of the midfield and we moved him into a wide area. And I mean, he didn't do too badly. Like, obviously defensively left something to be desired there, but Chelsea were, for the most part, in that second half on the front foot, had all sorts of control with the shape change, with Mason Mount coming into the midfield to join with Kovacic. And I thought Mason Mount did a good job of getting us playing. You know, some of the combination plays through the middle were very good, and unfortunately, just a little bit more quality with the final ball servicing, we probably would have pierced their back line again and scored. But again, Chelsea were just way too open in the midfield for the large majority of this game, and it led to the demise of this team. You know, like, of course, we can speak about like what was supposed to be a strength in the squad today. You know, our attackers, the ability to, you know, really put pressure on Brighton's defense. And you look at the performance of Raheem Sterling again. You know, he wasn't great. I mean, he kept on trying to dribble and just dribbled right into the defender. You know, like, it just looked really poor on his part. Like, granted, he did have a couple, you know, moves in the first half where he played in, you know, our attackers, and with better quality, you know, in finishing, we probably would have had 2 goals, he would have had 2 assists. Overall, his overall match was just poor. And, you know, I've been banging on about him, you know, trying to get more central, to get into those areas where he can thread through those balls. And he did do that today. It did look like he was playing a little bit, he came inside a little bit more and was able to find some of those through balls that got guys in behind. But overall, his quality on the ball was just not good enough, giving away the ball far too often and dribbling into men rather than trying to dribble around them. It was just poor. Overall, I felt like the attackers that we had on the pitch today were not in any way, shape, or form, you know, doing us any justice with the shape. You know, like, in terms of the amount of attackers that we had on the pitch and the amount of opportunities that we created, I mean, it was in stark contrast. He, of course, did have a couple of chances in the first half where you think, man, he's got to score. He has to score there. And, you know, Pulisic with a chance that, you know, on the rebound just balloons it over the net. You saw Kai Havertz get no opportunities where he's 1v with the keeper and balloons it over the net. Beautiful cutback from Ruben in the second half, and, you know, on his favorite left foot, and he just skies it, doesn't take a touch to control it, disguise it. You know, all of these things, I mean, at that point the game was dead anyways, didn't really matter. But at the same time, you know, when we play with such an attacking lineup and we're not seeing the fruits of that, we're not even seeing the benefit of having that many attackers on the pitch, then what is the point? You know, what is the point of having that many attackers on the pitch if in the end we still cannot generate the opportunities or finish the opportunities that will make that shape look like it's actually formidable? You know, it's just an eyesore of miscalculations from the management, and, you know, our players on the pitch just did not do him any justice today. But I can feel it already. I was getting into the point where I was just gonna get really, you know, ranty, and I'm just gonna stop it there. Like, Chelsea were just inept in every way, shape, or form today, like whether it be in defense, transition, you know, offensive awareness, everything that we did today on the pitch was just poor, and it started with management just assessing what the game was asking for and not really meeting it. For the third game in a row now, we can say that Graham Potter has not, his pre-match assessment has been poor. Chelsea have had to come into the second half with a completely different dynamic of football. And how do we assess the game? Like, I'd rather see Chelsea grow into matches rather than try and like hit teams on the front foot with like everything we have. I want to see us grow into the match. Start it a little bit more slow with a little bit more solidity in the back, and then grow into the match and see where we go from there. But this cavalier approach, this lack of respect to our opponents is just leading to the demise of this club right now. And I'm hoping that Graham Potter comes to this conclusion sooner rather than later, because, you know, points are very, very important right now. This is not Brighton. You can't, you know, be experimenting with lineups and then like, oh, well, it didn't work this time, we'll get them next time. This is not Brighton. This is Chelsea Football Club. We need to be showing a lot more composure, solidity in our squad, and have an ideation in the final third that is conducive to scoring goals. Right now, we're way too open, and teams are finding us out. So we have to go back to the basics and be a little bit more solid again. But guys, the matches don't get any easier. I think the next game is Arsenal. You know, they're in good form. They're going to be licking at the chops to play a Chelsea team that play as cavalier as we have in the past. They have the weapons to hurt, and hopefully Graham Potter understands this and recognizes that we have to be a little bit more solid. I'm fuming, but I'm going to have to leave it there. Until then, keep the blue flag flying high, and up the Chels. Peace.